Toxins increase inflammation, which again, we know, right, is the root of every major degenerative disease we know. From Alzheimer's, obesity, to cancer, diabetes, toxic food, toxic environment, toxic thoughts, toxic stress, toxic social and spiritual health. There are toxins all around us. And what is even scarier, that it's affecting our children. It is affecting our future. But guess what? We can take back control of our health. Because I know it's crazy because we were bombarded by toxicity in every direction. Where are we going to start? Guess what? We're going to start with what we can control, our home. And again, don't worry, my next guest, she's amazing. She's going to help us and educate us to where these household toxins are located and how it affects our children and what you guys can do to start putting your family's health back into your hands today. She's so inspirational. You need to stay tuned. Get ready to have some fun. Welcome back to another amazing Madiha MD show. I am Dr. Madiha Saeed, a board-certified integrative holistic family physician, also known as Holistic Mom MD, here to educate and empower you from the inside out to heal. It's so exciting. And guess what? My next guest was so frustrated with her health. Literally. You know what she did? She took matters into her own hands. Seriously. And what's really crazy is because obviously if you're not getting, what do you do when you're not getting answers? Why not go back to medical school? Just like my next guest. And that too, after a decade of working as an IBM engineer. Wow! Told you I had an inspirational guest for you today. This is so amazing. Dr. Shippy became discouraged that the traditional medicine, the way that we do things now, couldn't really find answers to her own health ailments. So she left the engineering to attend University of Texas Medical School, where Dr. Shippy is now a dynamic leader in the area of functional medicine, meaning that she actually uses science and personalized attention to treat the whole person, looking for the root cause and not just band-aiding her symptoms. Her interests and areas of expertise are autoimmunity, neurology, gastroenterology, infertility, pregnancies, and environmental factors such as mold toxicity. Huge nowadays. Dr. Shippy is also the author of 2 amazing books, the Shippy Paleo Essentials and the Mold Toxicity Workbook. She's been serving patients for over 15 years in her thriving practice in Austin, Texas. Welcome, Dr. Shippy. So excited to have you on today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Woohoo!
We're gonna have so much fun.
This is so amazing. I know we're going to have fun. By the way, I got to warn you, we do have a lot of fun when we get together. So, to keep forewarned. But please enlighten all of us. How did you go from literally being an IBM engineer to going into medical school? And how did you get into this particular field of medicine and this area of interest that you're currently practicing in?
Well, I knew I needed to do something different. I got really sick, even though I loved being an engineer, and actually got to work on helping to decrease the amount of chemicals that we used in our manufacturing processes. And I really thought I was going to be at IBM until I retired. That was kind of the traditional thing back then, is that you just stayed at one company for your whole career. But I got sick and I went to doctor after doctor and really couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I just started reading and researching and trying different things until I figured out how to get myself well. And then I just woke up one morning and I knew that I wanted to take the skills that I had developed at IBM to be able to help people to heal in a different way, not just be prescribed medications that would band-aid the symptoms, but really find the root cause. as to what was going on and help to restore the body back to health. And I wanted to have an MD background as a foundation, because there are lots of times where we really do need the band-aids until we can get the
Mm-hmm.
solutions applied and get the body back into balance.
Absolutely. How beautiful. And we know that chronic disease is due to inflammation. And I know I talk about deficits in your digestive health and detoxification, the 4S of stress, sleep, social, and spiritual health, all really tie into what inflammation and your chronic conditions in ourselves and our families. So specifically when it comes to toxins, our world, we're living in more and more of a toxic world. But that can be overwhelming for a lot of people. So let's start with what we can control, right? Like our home is full of toxins, and that's where we spend a chunk of our time, and that's the environment again we can control. So where do we start in our home?
Well, and a lot of people out there might be thinking, well, I don't think there's any toxins in my home. But what we
Right.
don't realize until we actually start looking at test results is that there's a lot of things that actually do what they call outgas. So our carpets and our floors and our mattresses and our cabinets and our paint, the glues in furniture, the caulking, the cleaners, so many of them actually put chemicals into the air, and then we breathe them in. And what's so important is that children actually have a higher respiratory rate than adults. So they're actually getting more of the chemicals going into their lungs, especially the really little ones. And we don't even realize that that's happening. So, so when you look around and you think, oh, everything seems like it's fine, well, it's probably not, because we're building our houses tighter and tighter. So the chemicals, rather than
Wow.
diffusing into the air and going into the atmosphere, are getting locked into the houses. So just things like when you're going to paint or when you're going to put materials in or buy new furniture, researching a little bit and finding out what the lower toxicity materials are is a really important thing that most people don't think about. They just go get the paint or go get the couch or put in the new cabinets. And then we can do things with the air filtration system. So if you're building a new house or putting in a new air conditioning system, get the people that are helping you to choose those to get higher level of filtration systems. And then really what I think most children and adults too need is an air filter, a HEPA air filter to run during the night, because we spend a big portion of our life in our bedroom sleeping. Hopefully we're getting good sleep, and that can actually make a big difference.
But why do you think that is important? Like what effects are you seeing in children?
Yeah, so it can be the obvious things like allergies and asthma.
Wow.
But then a lot of times, as the toxins are building up in their bodies, it's things that are less obvious. So it can be things like how well they're able to pay attention. So the ADD, the ADHD. It can be things like their mood. So are they feeling anxious? Are they having issues with depression? And then even things like skin conditions. So are they getting eczema and psoriasis? And then even leading into autoimmune diseases in children. We're seeing more and more autoimmunity.
Wow.
And then there's some things that are even linked to IQ drops. So, how are they performing in school? Especially some of the air quality coming into the house. There's good research behind living close to highways and industrial sites, or where trash is taken in a city.
Wow. But then what determines the air quality of the air? So how do we know?
Yeah, it's there again. I don't want to scare people. There are things that we can control, and then there are some things that we can't control. So here in Austin, where I live, we had some issues over the summer where the air quality was so bad from either air blowing in from Mexico when they were burning off fields and getting some of the pesticides and smoke into the air. We've had issues with fires around the country. So we took a family vacation up into Tahoe this year, and the fires from Yosemite. So those are the things that we can't really control. But then a lot of it can depend on what city you live in, and there are some websites that help you to know. So what are industry putting in? If you're in a rural area, what kind of pesticides are getting sprayed? So that's when I get back to, we really want to be controlling what we can in our house by having some good air filtration. The HEPA filters are really helpful.
Wow. So that the HEPA filters will help to take all that out. But what about mold? So if you mentioned mold, and that especially now with like homes being flooded and one hurricane after another, like it's crazy, especially, the times that we have going on right now. But you mentioned mold, and is it common for someone to have mold in their house and not realize it? What can we do to help limit? So yes, please. How do we determine this? We need help.
Well, mold is a huge issue, especially as we're building these tighter houses that don't breathe, so that things can dry out if you do get some moisture. So if you know that you've had a leak in your house, it deserves to have some attention, to have a specialist come in and actually test the house and look behind the walls and make sure that there wasn't mold that grew. But a lot of times it's actually hidden. So if there's some condensation in the air conditioning system, or if caulking wasn't done perfectly around a window, or a chimney, or an air vent of some kind, a lot of times even just a little bit of moisture in drywall will cause some mold to form. So if anybody in the family is starting to have a medical issue, it may make sense to go look for, to do some testing and see if there's some mold present.
And how does it affect specifically our children? Are there like short-term, long-term? What are the actual effects from this mold that we need to look out for?
So again, a lot of times children are more susceptible than adults, just because their immune or their detoxification systems haven't been fully formed. And what's like a small dose for an adult is a huge dose for the body weight of a child. And there's so many different mold toxins. It can be a lot of different symptoms. So it might be, again, back to noticing a respiratory issue with asthma or with allergies, or it could be a skin rash. It could be having trouble focusing in school. So I actually had my own run-in with mold, a pretty serious one, about 8 or 9 years ago. And it affected me a lot more, probably because of all my years of chemical engineering and then a mouthful of amalgam filling. So it made me sicker than my children, actually. But it did, thankfully, it affected me so significantly that I had to learn about it and got to help my children. So one of my children was having some issues with some depression. It really affected his mood. And my younger child, it really affected his ability to learn in school. So before we figured out that we had mold, his teacher was really, really frustrated with him. He was in 3rd grade, and when she would try to teach something new to the class, he would be so frustrated that he'd be kind of acting out and throwing his body around on the floor and interrupting her.
Wow.
And then about 2 months after we moved out of the house, we went back in for a parent-teacher conference, and she was like, "Oh, everything's fine." So he had really had such an impact in the ability to learn. But then once we were out and his body had a chance to catch up with detoxifying, he was able to not be so impulsive and to start to be able to absorb the information again.
Wow. And then, but what about, especially with a lot of his symptoms at school too? What happens if we suspect if there's mold at school? Because that's something.
That is a really big challenge. And unfortunately, a lot of schools do have problems. And I've had a number of patients that their school was causing their symptoms with not being able to
Hmm.
learn as well, or, the memory, focus, concentration being down, or um, even one patient had developed really severe rheumatoid arthritis, and we had to, for her, we had to change her school because she was so affected. There are some resources that parents can use. It's actually put out by the Environmental Protection
Hmm.
Agency. So it's if you could put in EPA and mold, there's a whole PowerPoint that
Hmm.
you can take to your school to help to get that attention there. And there are studies that have been done that especially show that kids have difficulty learning, their memory and concentration can be affected. And a lot of times the schools don't have the resources or don't think they have the resources to repair water leaks properly
Wow.
because you only have 24 to 48 hours to get drywall and other organic materials completely dried out before they can start molding. So if there's any kind of leak or sewer overflow or that kind of thing, if they don't have the resources to get that drying out very, very quickly, they think that they've corrected the problem, but behind the hidden walls or in the air conditioning systems and that kind of thing, there's mold growing, and those the chemicals that the mold make are building up in the environment and then affecting the
Wow.
teachers and the children.
Wow. So, but what can we do? Because especially when this topic is so vast and it can overwhelm so many people. Like, I'm already overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Where do we start as parents to help protect our children from these environmental toxins, hidden mold exposures? What can we do today to help, arm them from these?
So the best thing is doing the testing and getting rid of, actually having specialists come in and get rid of the mold if it's there,
Mm-hmm.
and also preventing it. If there's any kind of water leak, that things get dried out immediately, or even the drywall ripped out.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a handout for people listening on mold to get them started. We'll have a link for you. It's
Yep.
just anshippymd.com/mold that will
Yes.
have with some resources on it, and then the Environmental Protection Agency link as well, so that especially if you think it's in your child's school, like maybe they do better during the summer than they do during the school year, that might be a hint. Or if it's obvious like that there's been some water leaks in the school, on how to approach the school district or the leaders in the school to get some action taken, because it really is it's a right for the children to be able to be safe in their school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what about things like, is there specific things that we can do, like optimizing their immune system? Like what can we do with our children specifically to help them also?
To help them to be
Yeah,
safer.
resist.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the things I love to talk about is
Yes,
how
please.
much what they eat can
Yay!
impact how well their detoxification systems
Yes.
work.
Please enlighten us.
Yeah. So I actually think we really need to be feeding our children low toxicity foods. So
Mm-hmm.
getting organic as much as possible so that they're
Perfect.
not getting the glyphosate and other pesticides in the food. And
Mm-hmm.
then teaching them to eat the vegetables. So it's really amazing how vegetables can help them to zip those chemicals that we don't have the control over out of their bodies. So the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, the things that we think, oh, we don't need to feed our children that because they won't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how their taste buds will change if we just get them eating a bite or two of it, or
Mm-hmm.
putting it in things that they don't necessarily taste it so much or suspect it. So if your children aren't eating those things yet, things like chili, just chopping up some red cabbage so it kind of blends in a little bit really
Okay.
finely, and
I like being sneaky.
sneak it in there. And then soups and stews and that kind of thing. I've been doing a lot with the zucchini noodles and putting the pasta sauce over the spiralized zucchini and other. You can do all kinds of vegetables spiralized. And then they actually start liking it once they start eating it on a regular basis. Their taste buds change.
That's awesome.
But having a goal of at least getting those good vegetables in every dinner or most dinners can make a huge difference in how their bodies can get the toxins out.
Oh, amazing. So food is one of them. What are the other tips that you would give parents to help optimizing their detoxification pathways?
So I actually find that a lot of adults and children are deficient in magnesium.
Oh, okay.
And magnesium is one of the, it's a mineral that your body needs for so many different things, but especially detoxification. So if your children like baths, putting a little bit of Epsom salts in the bath can help to build up the magnesium in their bodies and help them to detoxify as well. And then I also have a clay and salt mixture that I put in their bath, and so they kind of feel like they're playing in the dirt in their bathtub, but it's actually helping them to detoxify.
Excellent. Awesome. Awesome. Such amazing tips that we can start today. And believe me, I get my kids in the Epsom salt baths regularly, spiralize these vegetables. My kids love them. Your kids will love them. And sneakingly, we're actually improving their detoxification pathways. Yay! So thank you, Dr. Shippy, for honoring us with your time today. How can we connect with you? Like, I know you have handouts, your social media, your website. Please enlighten us. How can we connect with you?
It's all under AnnShippyMD.com. You can link to everything there. And then if you want the mold handout, it's just AnnShippyMD/mold. And we'll zip over lots of information on how to look for mold, because it really is becoming an epidemic. A lot of buildings, at least 50% of buildings have some mold in it. So we want to start increasing the awareness on that so our kids can be healthier.
Yay! Excellent! Thank you so much. Mwah. Did you see how easy that was, you guys? The power to lower inflammation and toxicity is in your hands. You just got to start at home. Take it one day at a time, one meal at a time, one product at a time. Start with decorating your home with tons of green plants, adding an air filter, swapping out toxic chemicals for clean items, and always remember to eat to detoxify. And even throw in a bath once in a while. Yay, your kids will love you. Thank you again for joining me. I am here for you. We got this. Well, you know that we're just going to keep on partying until next time. So please join me and my family on social media at HolisticMomMD. Check out my book, The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease, and my upcoming children's book, My Healing Day. I'm here for you. Let's do this together. Healing can be so simple and fun. Real healing for real life. Thank you, guys.